Western Spring Television. Ours it is.
Armed bandits abduct two female students at Federal University Gusau in Zamfara State. National Drug Law Enforcement Agency NDLA declares prophetess celebrity couple wanted overseas illicit drugs. Founder of Living Faith Church Worldwide, Bishop David Oyedepo denies campaigning for any politician amidst alleged leaked audio. On the foreign scene, Burkina Faso expels two French journalists amidst escalating crackdown on foreign media. Good evening, this is News at 7 on Western Spring Television. My name is Opayamuni. Armed bandits have abducted two female students at the Federal University Gusau in Zamfara State. The incident happened in the early hours of today when the kidnappers stormed the hostel located at Sabongida, a community opposite the main campus of the university, and succeeded in locking up security guards. The two kidnapped victims were identified as Mariam and Zainab. Spokesperson of the command, Mohamed Shehu, said the bandits invaded the rented female hostel located at Sabongida village in Bungudu local government area of the northwestern state. During the process, they locked up the two civilian guards and dispossessed them of their handsets before whisking the victims of the microbiology department away. Meanwhile, in continuation of its onslaught against the bandits in the northwest zone, troops of the Nigerian army have neutralized 11 bandits in local government area of Kaduna State. An operational feedback to the Kaduna State government said the troops advanced to several identified locations and cleared bandit camps in Bagoma, Rema, Bugai, Dagara, Sabunlai, Kagumi, Kakangi, Katakaki, and Randagi areas. According to a statement today by the Kaduna State Commissioner for Internal Security and Home Affairs, Samuel Arwan, in the course of the operations, the troops made contact with bandits at Kakangi and Katakaki, and during a first gun battle, the criminals were subdued by the troops' aggressive firepower. It said 11 of the bandits were neutralized by the troops while the rest escaped with bullet wounds. During the operation, the troops recovered 2 AK-47 rifles, 2 AK-47 magazines, 57 rounds of ammunition, while 6 motorcycles belonging to the bandits were destroyed. The National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLA, has declared a popular Port Harcourt-based prophetess and founder of Christ Power Adoration Ministries, Faith Ugochi, as well as a celebrity couple, Igor Ubudibo and Daniel Simba Allen, wanted for allegedly recruiting teenage girls into drug trafficking. Spokesperson for the anti-drug agency, Femi Babafemi, who disclosed this in a statement, said they serve as the arrowheads of an international syndicate operating from Los Angeles, USA. According to Mr. Babafemi, the lead was blown off the cartel when NDLA operatives at the narco import shed of the Murtala Mohammed International Airport, Lagos, intercepted a consignment of 32.7 kilograms of loud, a strong variant of cannabis concealed in cartons of used wares on Wednesday, November 16, 2022. The NDLA spokesman said a freight agent, Uko Ifeanyi Ogogo, was immediately arrested, while further investigations led to the arrest of 4 more suspects: Chiko De Favor, Obiyom Shalom, Chiamaka, Nochiri Chidema Promise, and Edward Omasheye. It said 15-year-old Favor was the first sales girl to be arrested at a fuel station in Ajah area of Lagos. She thereafter led the operatives to a duplex accommodation around the Ikate area of Lekki, which was later discovered to be a rented apartment by the criminal group purposely for 4 young girls that the syndicate uses for marketing and distribution of illicit drugs. Founder of Living Faith Church Worldwide, Bishop David Oyedepo, today said he never campaigned for any politician or spoken on their behalf in the build-up to the 2023 general election in the country. Bishop Oyedepo said this while speaking to the congregation at the church's headquarters in Otaogun State. He spoke in reaction to the leaked audio allegedly between the cleric and the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, discussing on the mobilization of Christians in Kwara and Southwest states to vote for him. The cleric, while indirectly referring to the alleged leak phone conversation between him and Mr. Obi, said he never spoke to any group of people on behalf of any politician. He added that all political parties sought his prayers and advice before the election, and he availed them, adding that nobody ever told him what to say in this world.
Over them in Nazareth, Mark chapter 6, and he could do no mighty work. The mighty God could not do no mighty work. What of me, small man? There is no party in Nigeria that was running that didn't come to me for prayer, sir. No one. But I can't answer the prayer. I can only pray for you. Praise God. My God. Whether you're a member of a church or not, without your faith, Papa's prayer won't do nothing. Jesus' prayer won't do nothing. He's in heaven now praying for us. Why are we still not being answered in your life? Come on now. Let's wake up and take responsibility so we don't end up in liability. Wake up and take responsibility. Jesus is in heaven. Yes, make intercession for us. So why are we still going through struggles? Because without your faith, his prayer can't be answered.
Earlier, the Labour Party Campaign Council asked the Nigerians to distribute bigotry linked to a viral audio clip of its presidential candidate, Peter Obi, and founder of Winners Chapel, David Oyedepo. In the audio clip, a voice similar to that of Mr. Obi can be heard asking the cleric and Kwara to vote for him in the presidential poll, describing the election as a religious war. While some Mr. Obi supporters described the audio as fake, a spokesperson of the LP campaign, Kenneth Okonkwo, in a series of posts on his official Twitter handle, said political criminals are trying to spin the conversation as if the LP candidate was making a religious comment. According to Mr. Okonkwo, it is the ruling APC that has declared religious war on Nigerians. Globally, millions of children are involved in child labor in countries like Nigeria mostly eat. In this report, Joseph Atewe examines the level of child labor in the country with a focus on Osun State.
For many children in Nigeria, even before they are old enough to savor the fleeting miracle their childhood is, the most precious gift is savagely snatched away from them. One of the main culprits is child marriage, but an equally culpable culprit is child labor, which has become rampant over the years. Some persons argue that child labor steals the innocence of childhood and thrusts children into adulthood long before they are ready, denying them the understanding and enjoyment that comes with truly being a child. Just recently, the International Labour Organization stated that no fewer than 15 million children are engaged in child labor in Nigeria. Don't forget that the Nigeria Employers Consultative Association, NECANJA, Ondo, and Osun child labor is prevalent in Nigeria. In light of these, we took a trip round Osogbo during school hours, and what we saw was disheartening. Kids were seen selling on the streets, while some were just roaming around. While some will argue that the level of poverty is the cause of child labor in Nigeria, many, like Costly Adebigbe, a medical doctor and the executive director of Value Female Network, believes that it's a thing of the mind, and under no circumstances should a child be allowed to do any other work aside from house chores.
Child below 18 years goes to hawk or goes to engage in sort of some paid labor to make family meals or even to take care of herself. That child is not supposed to work according to Nigerian law, according to the child rights law, which have been domesticated in most of the states in Nigeria. A child is supposed to be a child. A child is not supposed to work to take care of him or herself, nor the family, nor caregiver, nor anybody.
At 4:35 p.m. after school hours, we took to the streets again to see for ourselves the level of street hawking and children selling for their parents after school. At a beer parlor, we met 12-year-old Ronke Ademola selling drinks for her parents. She explained how heartbreaking it is for her, but she's left with no choice.
I feel bad because if I came to school, I do the house chores, I self my mother won't be able to participate in what they give me in school. So my teacher complained about me that I'm not doing well.
Just around Okebale, Oshogo, we met another, Jumoke Olaniyan, a 14-year-old child who explained how she feels walking after school.
I personally don't feel comfortable because after coming back from school, I don't have time to do my own work and I feel somehow.
Over the years, child hawking and selling for their parents has been a means of survival for many living from hand to mouth, while for some, it's a way to assist their parents. We spoke to so many parents like Mr. Bayo Ogundele. He says that child hawking or selling for their parents has been part of the culture.
If you are not from a well-blooded, blue-blooded family, I don't know how you are going to do it in the very circumstance we have found ourselves. Because if you are not a child from Otedola's family or from Dangote's family, that has got the wherewithal to feed their children, to send them to a very high-paying school. I don't know how you are going to do if you are not going to help your mother in doing some kind of helping them in some kind of trades. Because I could remember when we were young, we also passed through the same thing. Yes, it is a tradition, really. But you know, in the Western worlds, you know, remember about 90% of the upkeeps for children have been borne by the government. So how many is left for the parents? Very few things for the parents. So the culture is in our world is very nice.
Costly Adebigbe, owner of a non-governmental organization, disagrees with the parents, saying child labor is child labor, no matter how we try to paint it.
Truth is that if you as a parent, you are not ready to, and that's why we preach family planning and we talk to people, you know, about a lot of ways you can plan your family. If you know that you're not ready to take care of a child, you cannot bear the responsibility. It's better you plan your family in such a way that the little you have will be enough to take care of them. I want to urge parents, I want to urge caregivers, I want to urge them to do more in protecting children.
In 2003, then Nigerian President Olusegun Obasanjo signed the Child Rights Act into law to preserve the rights of children and protect them from exploitative labor. But 17 years later, millions of Nigerian children still take on physical challenging work to earn money to survive or to support their families. Questions begging for answer remains: should government tackle the problem of poverty? Should there be free education as well as free meals in school for children? Should there be absolute disregard for institutions that encourage child labor? Will this put an end to child labor in Nigeria, most especially Osun State, where child labor is prevalent, according to NACA? These and many more are begging for answers because the Nigerian child deserves a better life. Joseph Atewe, Western Spring Television.
World Autism Awareness Day is an internationally recognized day that is observed on April 2nd every year. The day is dedicated to raising awareness about autism spectrum disorder and promoting acceptance and understanding of individuals with the ailment. On the occasion of World Autism Awareness Day, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres called for renewed resolve in advancing their inherent rights and celebrating their contributions. Despite important progress, it said persons with autism continue to face social and environmental barriers to the full exercise of their rights and fundamental freedoms. Joining us on news is Dr. Olayinka Oderi, educational psychologist and educator. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much. Good evening, listeners.
All right, what are the early signs of autism and what are some symptoms of the ailment that parents, guardians, and caregivers?
Autism is a spectrum. We call it autism spectrum disorder. And when you say a spectrum, it means it goes like that. So it can be on this end or on that end. So it varies from person to person. But it's a neurological disorder that affects behavior. It affects cognition. It affects, it shows from the child, from about 2 years, you begin to notice that.
Physical appearance.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. There are things, for instance, that children that age should do that the child won't be able to do. For instance, the child may get repetitive, may have restrictive speech. The speech will not be clear. sometimes there are other indications in other situations, other conditions that coexist with this. Sometimes in school, it is, most of the time, it is from school that this is identified, but a lot of the times, the parents, school owners, don't see it as a disorder. They see it as the child is stubborn, the child is playful, and because it's a behavioral issue. The child has issues with communication, he has issues with skills, communicating with people, he has problems relating with peers and with others. So what his mates will be able to do at that age, he won't be able to do it. But sometimes, if he's on the end of the spectrum, if he's on the high end of the spectrum, the child can be given for as being psychotic. So it's a spectrum.
All right. Are there treatments available for autism?
Oh, yes. There are. At the moment, there is really no clear-cut reason for it, but there are medications and there are therapies that we give. In the hospitals, they give them medical treatments, therapies, and therapies. There is a spectrum also of therapies that can be given to manage the person living with autism. However, as the child goes, because you say you identify from the age of 2, that child of 2 will grow to be an adult. So if we have early detection, the child will be easily treated, will be given therapies as early as possible, and then will be able to live a normal life.
But what do you think is the biggest issue with this particular ailment, this disorder?
Early detection. Early detection, living in denial, non-acceptance from even parents, family members, caregivers, particularly schools. Because the child comes up with behavioral issues. The child cannot stay in one place. Sometimes they even have what we call ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. The child is everywhere. He jumps on the table, jumps on the floor, and all that. Everybody not to want to be with him. Nobody wants to be with that kind of child. So there is also, the moment the child is discovered to have autism, people begin to withdraw from him. And they call, particularly in this part of the world, we call them with different types of names that are derogatory. So the quality of life of somebody living with autism is very low.
Why do children with autism have difficulty learning in a regular classroom setting? And how?
Thank you. People, children and persons, I also always want to say persons because the child will grow up to be an adult.
To be a person, yeah.
Persons living with autism, and like I said, is a spectrum. Somebody on the very low end of the spectrum can live a normal life. You won't even know. You're just with some little, discomfort here and there. But with others along the spectrum, they cannot, is a special situation. And one of the signs of ASD is cognition. The child will not be able to comprehend what you are saying. You have not greeted me good morning, and the child looks at you. You understand? So the regular is prepared to teach regular children that have no spectrum with autism, needs special instruments, needs a special teacher, needs a special environment. Sometimes they react to things, to lights, to colors, to noise. So in a typical classroom environment, they cannot survive.
But you said some of them can still lead a normal life.
Yes.
How possible is that? Since you said that they need a special teacher, special classroom, special everything.
Yes, as the spectrum grows, the difficulties also increases. So the difficulty in A, who is on the low end of the spectrum, is different from the difficulties in Z, that is on the end of the spectrum, that is sometimes given up as a mad boy or a child that has mental disorder. So it depends on the point of the spectrum that the child is. So there is need for early detection and diagnosis to know on one end, what end of the spectrum this child or this person is, and then we'll be able to treat along that.
All right, let's now come to our Nigerian society. Do you think our society has been doing enough to support individuals with autism to fully achieve their potentials in life?
Well, I think that is a reason for the Autism Day.
Yeah.
we want to make a cry to the society. We are not doing enough. We have a lot of laws, for instance, the National Policy on Education is there. There is provision for them. But all the laws, the Constitution provides for them. The laws for people with special needs provides for them. However, implementation is the problem. For instance, in our schools, we are supposed to have inclusive education. But in Nigeria, how many schools do that? How many schools will I take a child with ASD and then they will admit the child and will not say, no, we don't take care of such children here. Take them to special schools. So we are not doing enough. We want to appeal to government to enforce the laws. There are laws. We want to make sure that things that are supposed to be done are done, particularly in our schools. Also, in employment, persons with special needs, and particularly people with mental health issues, are most of the time not considered for employment. And if they are not employed, they go back to the streets. They go back begging. They go back into vices that we don't want. So I just want to make an appeal to government. I want to make an appeal to the society, to well-meaning Nigerians, to support persons living with ASD. It is a condition that needs the support of all. We are calling on people to see whatever they can do to make the quality of life of persons living with ASD to improve.
All right, I'm going to direct this one to you. You have been in the past cared for lots of people with autism. What do you think can be done to better support these individuals?
Like I said, early detection. Parents who have children, you may not know it is autism, but you just know that this child is not like other children. There is need to bring that child out and seek help. There is need also for people around them. If you know a parent that has a child with ASD, even their own quality of life is lower than those of their mates. So we want to ask that both persons living with ASD, people taking care of them, their immediate family and important others in their lives should be appropriately catered for in our society. All
right, thank you very much for your time and insightful contribution, Ma. Thank you very much for coming. I've been speaking with Dr. Olayinka Oderinde. She is a retired permanent secretary, educational psychologist, and special needs advocate and educator. Thank you very much once again for coming.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
All right, you're still watching News at 7 on Western Spring Television. Still to come, Burkina Faso expels 2 French journalists amidst escalating crackdown on foreign media. We'll bring you more on this when we return.
On 16th September 1923, named Harry Lee Kuan and known as Lee Kuan Yew, he was often addressed by his initials of LKY. Lee Kuan Yew was a barrister and the first Prime Minister of Singapore between 1959 and 1990. Educated at Raffles Institution from 1936 to 1940 and the Fitzwilliam House between 1947 and 1949, Lee Kuan Yew established a highly effective and anti-corrupt governance system that midwifed the transformation of Singapore into a high net worth income economy within a generation. He never hid his exception to Western mode democratic ideal, which he believed had not assisted developing nations to attain good government. Before his death on 23rd March 2015, the People's Action Party, which he founded, had used its political influence to establish the United World College of Southeast Asia to expand his economic ideas among countries that constitute the Asian Tiger. Western Spring Television identifies Lee Kuan Yew as a major character in history. The The history of guns is traced to China. The Chinese had developed a technology civilization that produced devices identified as guns at about 1000 AD. By the end of the 13th century, the devices had become true guns and described as metal barrel firearms that fired single projectiles which occluded the barrel. When did gun become an instrument of war? The first battles to be decided by firearms were between French and Spanish soldiers. The early 16th century warfare included Magnano in 1515, Bicocca in 1522, and Pavia in 1525. The wars were fought in Italy. The gun is a weapon of destruction and death, but humanity sees it as a potent instrument of family destruction. People with guns feel safer even if they don't display it. Western Spring Television identifies history of guns as a watershed event in history. Mao Zedong at birth, but globally known as Mao Zedong, he was a Chinese revolutionary and founder, People's Republic of China, which he led as chairman of the Chinese Communist Party from 1949 until his death in 1976. He was a communist who believed in the attainment of power by the instrumentality of gun. His wise saying, "Political power grows out of the barrel of gun," formed the major plank of his revolutionary struggle for the control of China. In the long span of his leadership and political power, Mao Zedong relentlessly entrenched the communist philosophy in China, which emphasized the revolutionary struggle of the vast majority of people against the exploiting class and their state structures. The communist leaders defined the class struggle as people's war. Mao Zedong was a story of grass to grace, having risen from peasantry to preeminent status as China's most respected leader. Western Spring Television identifies Mao Zedong as a major character in history. The British Empire was the largest and the most powerful in the world. At its zenith, the empire embraced a quarter of the Earth's land surface and imposed her imperial majesty's rule on more than 458 million peoples across nations and continents. The empire took off with overseas possessions and trading posts established by England, spread over 3 million kilometers between 16th and early 18th century. Like previous empires, the British Empire began to crumble on its weight of overstretched territories and growing unrest in our various colonies. Today, the British Empire no longer exists. What is in place is the Commonwealth of Nations, a loose association of sovereign states which recognize the King of England as the titular head. Western Spring Television identifies the British Empire as a watershed empire in history.
Welcome back. This is still News at 7 on Western Spring Television. A reminder of our top headlines. Armed bandits abduct 2 female students at Federal University Gusau in Zamfara State. The National Drug Law Enforcement Agency NDLEA declares prophetess celebrity couple wanted over seized illicit drugs. Founder of Living Faith Church Worldwide, Bishop David Oyedepo, denies campaigning for any politician amidst alleged leaked audio. On the foreign scene, Burkina Faso expels 2 French journalists amidst escalating crackdown on foreign media. Governors of the 36 states of the Federation will on Tuesday meet with the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, and the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, over the security votes in their respective domains. Spokesman of the Nigeria Governors Forum, Abdulrazak Bello Barkindo, said in a statement that the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, ICPC, and the Federal Inland Revenue Service, FIRS, are also expected at the meeting. The planned meeting, which will be virtual, is to ensure full attendance by all the relevant officers in the matter. Bello Barkindo stated that the governors, as well as the economic and financial agencies in the country, will use the opportunity to iron out thorny issues surrounding their state's security votes towards establishing a better option for managing the funds. Apart from the facilities for national financial inclusion, the governors will propose uniform development and cooperation on the national addressing and postcode project, which will put Nigeria on the same pedestal as all advanced countries across the globe. National Chairman of the New Nigeria People's Party, NNPP, Rufai Alkali, has resigned. In a letter to his party, Alkali said the NNPP needs reorganization to consolidate its success in the general election. The former governor of Kano, Rabiu Kwankwaso, was the presidential candidate of the NNPP in the February 25th presidential poll, and he secured third place. The professor said he's convinced that change should start with him, hence his decision to step down for fresh ends to lead the party. On the foreign scene, Burkina Faso has expelled 2 French journalists working for newspapers Le Monde and Liberation. The 2 newspapers revealed this today, accusing the authorities of seeking to stifle freedom of speech with an escalating crackdown on foreign media. Liberation said its correspondent, Agnes Favre, and Le Monde's Sophie arrived in Paris early today after they were summoned separately for questioning by the military authorities on Friday and later notified of the expulsion. Liberation said in an editorial statement on its website that the 2 are journalists of perfect integrity who worked in Burkina Faso legally with valid visas and accreditations, adding that the newspaper strongly protest against what it described as absolutely unjustified expulsions. There was no statement from the authorities in Burkina Faso. Relations between Paris and Ouagadougou have deteriorated sharply since Burkina Faso's military seized power in a coup last October. Pope Francis presided over Palm Sunday Mass in St. Peter's Square today as it kicked off events leading to Easter just a day after leaving the hospital following a bout of bronchitis. The 86-year-old's admittance to hospital on Wednesday with breathing difficulties sparked concerns he may not be well enough to attend a series of rites in the most important week in the Christian calendar, but Francis had promised to be present and he waved briefly to some 30,000 people as he rode in his Pope Mobile through the square, which was adorned with over 35,000 plants and flowers. Palm Sunday marks the arrival of Jesus in Jerusalem before his crucifixion. Easter Sunday, which this year is on April 9th, celebrates his resurrection from the dead. In the United States, at least 26 people have been killed after a series of tornadoes tore through towns and cities in the south and midwest of the country. Homes were destroyed and thousands left without power after storms caused devastation across several states. According to Washington Post, more than 60 tornado reports were recorded. States including Arkansas, Tennessee, Illinois, Indiana, Alabama, and Mississippi have all had fatalities as a result of the weather. Still ahead, Saudi Arabia and other OPEC Plus oil producers today announced voluntary cuts to their production. We have more on these and other business stories after this break. Please stay with us.
Funmilayo Ransome Kuti was an educationist and advocate of women's rights. She was recognized for her vitriolic comments against colonial policy of taxation as it affected the Nigerian women. Bere, as fondly addressed by her women followers, Funmilayo championed the initiation of universal adult suffrage, which gave an unprecedented leeway for women to contest elective offices and power to exercise voting rights. Married to a foremost educationist and teacher, Israel Oladoto Ransome Kuti, the first president of Nigeria Union of Teachers, Funmilayo Ransome Kuti was the mother of children who inherited her spirit of activism. Olufela Anbe Ololari, the former, a renowned musical legend. She was the first female student of Abeokuta Grammar School and the first female to own and drive a car in Nigeria. The award recipient of Member of Order of Nigeria MON and Lenin Peace Prize, was born on 25th October 1900 and was killed on 13th April 1978 by rampaging road soldiers in Lagos. Western Spring Television identifies Funmilayo Ransome Kuti as a watershed character in history. The history of guns is traced to China. The Chinese had developed a technology civilization that produced devices identified as guns at about 1000 AD. By the end of the 13th century, the devices had become true guns and described as metal barrel firearms that fired single projectiles which occluded the barrel. When did gun become an instrument of war? The first battles to be decided by firearms were between French and Spanish soldiers. The early 16th century warfare included Magnano in 1515, Bicocca in 1522, and Pavia in 1525. The wars were fought in Italy. The gun is a weapon of destruction and death, but humanity sees it as a potent instrument of family destruction. People with guns feel safer even if they don't display it. Western Spring Television identifies history of guns as a watershed event in history. Born Jeremiah Oyeni Obafemi on March 6, 1905, Obafemi Awolowo was a prime architect of Nigeria's independence and most consummate advocate of free education and social welfare in Africa's most populous nation. Erudite politician, thinker, and philosopher, Awo was fondly addressed by associates and political colleagues, brought his unique attributes to bear on governance in the defunct Western region. He administered as leader of government business and the premier between 1955 and 1958. Obafemi Awolowo's premiership witnessed pioneering in multi-sectoral policy initiatives and execution. The Western region under his administration paraded several enviable records. First television station in Africa, first real estate in Nigeria, first high-rise building in Nigeria, first modern sports stadium in Nigeria, first agricultural settlement in Nigeria, first modern civil service secretariat in Nigeria, and first industrial estate in Nigeria. His face is on 100 naira denomination as a mark of honor for his distinguished services to his country. Western Spring Television identifies Obafemi Awolowo as a major character in history.
Welcome back, and now to business. The Nigeria Export Processing Zones Authority says the country's free trade zones scheme generated a total of 35.1 billion naira for the government as customs duty in 2021. Speaking at Abuja, Managing Director of NEPSA, Adesoji Adeshuba, said a sum of 408.3 million naira was also remitted as pay-as-you-earn taxes in the same year. According to Mr. Adeshuba, pay tax is one of the vital types of taxes in Nigeria that individuals pay to the Federal Inland Revenue Service within their respective state of residence. It said Section 19 of the NEPSA Act mandates free trade zones enterprises to file returns for statistics and data. Speaking further, he said the scheme created 19,925 jobs in 2021, while a total of 3,000 job skills were transferred to Nigerians in the same year. Minister of Aviation Ade Sirika says the runway 18R at the Muritala Mohammed International Airport in Lagos would be operational soon. The Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria had closed the runway 18R and 36L in the airport for maintenance work. The agency had said work on the runways would span 8 weeks. Senator Sirika, in a tweet, said the 18R runway would be opened soon for use this month, as work on the facility will be completed soon. It said the progress on the runway maintenance has advanced and that operations should begin before the end of April 2023. He also appreciated the public for being patient and understanding. Saudi Arabia and other OPEC Plus oil producers today announced voluntary cuts to their production, with Riyadh saying it would cut output by 500,000 barrels per day from May until the end of 2023. Russia's deputy prime minister also said Moscow would extend a voluntary cut of 500,000 barrels per day until the end of 2023. The United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Iraq, Oman, and Algeria said they would voluntarily cut output over the same time period. UAE's energy minister said the country is to cut oil production voluntarily by 144,000 barrels per day from May until the end of 2023. The Saudi Energy Ministry said in a statement that the kingdom's voluntary cut was a precautionary measure aimed at supporting the stability of the oil market. And on to sports, Leicester City have sacked manager Brendan Rodgers after yesterday's 2-1 loss to Crystal Palace, with the club's board compelled to take alternative action to stay in the Premier League. Their 5th league defeat in 6 games dropped them into the relegation zone. Rodgers, who was appointed in February 2019, won Leicester's first FA Cup in 2021. But Chairman Ayawat said performances and results this season have been below their shared expectations. There have now been 12 managerial departures in the Premier League this season. Of the current bottom 9 teams in the league, only West Ham and Nottingham Forest have not changed their manager this season. And out of boxing, Anthony Joshua returned to winning ways with a unanimous points victory over Jermaine Franklin at London's O2 Arena. The British-Nigerian heavyweight controlled the contest against the durable American, but it was not the explosive early finish many expected. 2 judges scored it 117 to 111 and 118 to 111 to Joshua. Tempers flared after the final bell as the 2 fighters squared up to each other, prompting their teams to enter the ring and be separated by security. It is Joshua's first win in more than 2 years, having lost consecutive bouts to WBA, IBF, and WBO world champion Alexander Usyk.
Last time I grabbed the mic, it was a bit chaotic, so I'm calm. I appreciate every single person coming out this evening. You see, Jermaine's got, someone else will knock him out probably, from Britain, I reckon. But Jermaine's got a good duck and dive style. There was opportunities there, but he knew how to tuck up. Respect to him, he done well. He done well, I respect him for that. Well done to him and his team for preparing. You know they were prepared for the fight. I should have knocked him out, but what can I say now? It's done, on to the next.
Dylan White says Anthony Joshua is showing signs of a fighter who does not want to do it anymore after the British heavyweight's points win over Jermaine Franklin. Joshua took a unanimous decision at London's O2 Arena in a fight many tipped him to win by stoppage. Britain's White beat Franklin in a close points decision in November.
I think stamina, I think that was a great time.
What did you think of his actual performance, though, Dillian, tonight? How did you think he performed after 2 back-to-back losses against Usyk?
It's terrible. Everyone is saying that Franklin's this, that, and the other. He said I should knock Franklin out. He didn't bother Franklin at all. Terrible. Terrible performance. Terrible.
In the meantime, President Muhammadu Buhari has hailed the victory of Nigerian-born boxer Anthony Joshua over Jermaine Franklin. In a statement by Special Advisor on Media and Publicity, Femi Adesina, President Buhari said the Nigerian-born boxer's resilient spirit was commendable, extolling the mentality of Joshua, who did not allow personal setbacks and obstacles to dent his resilient spirit. The president disclosed that the former three-time world heavyweight champion had demonstrated that by hard work, patience, dedication, persistence, and humility, those who dared would win. President Buhari lauded Joshua for his courage and discipline on and off the ring and prayed that his success will be a stepping stone to one of the greatest comebacks in boxing history. The president believed that Joshua's accomplishments on the world stage will continue to inspire many upcoming professionals, particularly sportsmen and women, not to be discouraged by temporary defeats and setbacks. He wished Joshua a bright future and a fulfilling career. And that's all these are. But before we go, here is a recap of our major stories. Armed bandits have abducted 2 female students at the Federal University Gusau in Zamfara State. The National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, has declared a popular Port Harcourt-based prophetess and founder of Christ Power Adoration Ministries, Faith Ugochi, as well as a celebrity couple, Igor Ubidibo and Daniel Simba Allen, wanted for allegedly recruiting teenage girls into drug trafficking. Founder of Living Faith Church Worldwide, Bishop David Oyedepo, today said he never campaigned for any politician or spoken on their behalf in the build-up to the 2023 general election of the country. On the foreign scene, Burkina Faso has expelled 2 French journalists working for newspapers Le Monde and Liberation. Please do follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Western Spring Television. You can also watch us live on our YouTube channel at Western Spring Television. I am Opayamuni. Thanks for watching.